Hello, welcome back to the Imperfect PCOS podcast. Today we are joined by Jamie Mills. She is a fellow registered dietitian, and she has had weight loss surgery after struggling with weight and PCOS throughout her life. She decided to have VSG in 2017. Since then, not only has she lost 112 pounds, but she also supports other bariatric patients in truly understanding nutrition and changing habits for the long run. She is on Instagram at the Sleeved Dietitian. This will all be linked for you, and is the owner and founder of the Tribe membership program. Jamie truly understands what it's like to struggle on your weight loss surgery journey and is able to support bariatric patients in such a unique way, both her credentials and expertise, as well as her own firsthand experience. What an amazing story. I could not be more thrilled to jump in today and explore this whole concept of weight loss surgery, nutrition. I really would love to start with welcoming you, Jamie, and getting to know you a little bit better. Welcome to the show. I've been looking forward to this day.
You're listening to the Imperfect PCOS podcast, where we share no BS science-backed strategies to put your PCOS into remission. I'm your host, Corey Ruth, aka the Women's Dietitian. Let's get into it.
Me too. Thank you so much for having me. This is so fun. I'm so excited to be here. It's funny because I actually never thought I would work with bariatric patients or be in the bariatric space. I always thought I was going to work singularly with PCOS patients. I went into the field I went into the field of dietetics to support women with PCOS. That was my goal since day one.
Hey.
I know. There was a couple plot twists there, but that was what propelled me to go to school to be a dietitian. I had struggled with my weight my entire life. Mm-hmm. I had childhood obesity. I was over 200 pounds by the time I was 9. And it was really a struggle because while my mom's side of the family did have weight problems, no one seemed to struggle the way I did. And my little sister, who grew up in the same house as me, and we ate the same foods and did the same activities, never struggled. Wow. And I was, I always struggled, and it never made sense until I was 14, and I had a primary care doctor, pediatric doctor, obviously at the time, who was fresh out of school. She was very young, and that was actually to our benefit because she had learned about PCOS before some of the other pediatric doctors had.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah. Love that. Even though it was traumatic in its own sense to get the diagnosis so young and not understand it, it was so beneficial because, as I've gotten older, I've realized so many people don't get that diagnosis until later in life or after seeing multiple doctors. Right. So I was 14, and she started to recognize the symptoms. So she sent me and my mom to this I don't know that it was a study. It was a clinic that they were doing at Yale New Haven Hospital here in Connecticut. They had like a PCOS clinic. So I went. It was cool. Yeah. It was like an 8-hour day. Again, slightly traumatizing at 14 years old.
I was going to say that's huge. Yeah.
Yeah. So me and my mom went, and it was, they did an ultrasound. We saw like literally all the cysts on my ovaries. Like I got to see it. They did like the glucose test. They did all sorts of testing that day that I barely remember. I was, 14 years old. And I remember seeing the dietitian, who was not particularly helpful, which I think also inspired me to make experiences hopefully better for others at some point in time. And I remember them saying, well, when you get home from school, a good snack would be 8 animal crackers. I'm like, 8 animal crackers? Like, it was very old school diety, and also, as you know, that not the most ideal PCOS snack anyways.
Have a handful of almonds. That's always the girl diet advice. When you're hungry and you have a craving, have a handful of almonds. I'm like, yes, that'll satisfy it, not. Yeah.
So I got diagnosed. They put me immediately on birth control and metformin, as they normally do. Yeah. I remember and then my mom, who was trying her best, she truly was, brought me to this like holistic naturopathic doctor who swore by doing what we know as now keto, but then Atkins, doing like a super, super low carb, very low carb, high protein diet. So here I was, 14 years old, incredibly overweight at this point. I wasn't, I think I was somewhere around 270-ish pounds. I had joined the volleyball team, was terrible at it, already felt bad about myself because I just wanted to play, but I ended up on the bench or keeping score the whole time. I remember we would go and travel for games, and not only, I already felt like the odd one out, but then I wasn't allowed to eat anything that other girls would. Like they'd get McDonald's or whatever, and I would be sitting there literally with my almonds.
With your animal crackers, your 8 animal crackers.
Well, at that point, we had nixed the animal crackers because my mom was taking me to this doctor, and now we were keto.
Oh, right. So animal crackers are a no.
So that was a no.
Yes.
But it was just really, and I had horrible side effects from the metformin, which I eventually went off of. But it was awful. So I felt so outcasted in so many ways, and that was pretty traumatic. And then I was also told from the time I was 14, well, you're probably not going to be able to have kids. Like, you're probably going to really struggle to have kids. So there's a lot of like trauma built up on top. But I will say that diagnosis, I remember them telling me like, it's not your fault, like you didn't do anything to cause this. And that was freeing in its own sense.
Yes.
Gave me almost, I don't know what the right word is, a little bit of a learned helplessness, because I didn't bother to try like I should have maybe. And granted, I was young.
I see. Yes.
But as I got older, I was perpetually diet cycle. But what would ultimately end up happening is, after I would try again, I would say, why do I even bother? I have PCOS. I have this thing that it doesn't matter what I do, I can't lose weight. So I had gotten to a point where I stopped trying, and I was really heavy, and it was really, really hard. So I was in school. I was in college at this point. I was studying English and secondary education with a minor in art. So it was nothing dietetic related at all.
Yes. Plot twist.
But plot twist. I started to really, I remember I got to a point where just walking around campus, climbing upstairs to get to class was so uncomfortable and hard on my body. I'm also a relatively like small person. Like I'm barely 5'4". Like I was carrying a lot of weight on my short stature.
Yes.
And I remember saying, I have to at least try. I was like, if I don't at least try to get my health under control, I'm not going to be able to stop this rapid gain. Like, this is not gonna, like I was scared for my future at like 19 years old. Totally. So I started doing what I thought was healthy, which was, and it started off as healthy, you know, eating smaller portions, going to the gym.
Eat less, move more.
Right.
Yes.
But it pretty quickly turned from a pretty healthy mindset to a very destructive one, and a very disordered one, where I was significantly under eating, over exercising, working, going to school all day, waiting tables all night, going to the gym in between, like it was really detrimental.
Unsustainable.
So I had lost about 70-ish pounds doing that, until I really just hit rock bottom, just really in the depth of disordered eating. That was when I ended up going to therapy and seeking out help. And it was through that process that I wanted to help other people not have to go what I went through. And this is where I ended up changing my major. I decided to go to school to be a dietitian, and I had set out to go to school to be a dietitian because I wanted to have my own private practice where I could help bariatric patients. That was like my goal. I'm sorry, not bariatric.
PCOS. Yes.
PCOS. Ended up being bariatric patients, but PCOS patients. And it was during my time in my dietetics program that I started to really understand nutrition. I started to actually apply the things I was learning, and yet I still just kept gaining. And I felt like no matter what I did, I couldn't get it under control. And it was during my dietetic internship year, because why not do all the hard things at once? I decided I was finally ready to have weight loss surgery. I had regained all of those 70 pounds and some. And I was tired of fighting so much. I was tired of feeling this need to do it on my own and do it naturally. There was so much shame embedded in this choice.
Yes, and I want to explore that today.
I felt so just ashamed of, and even like guilty, which is such an odd thing to feel, because it's not like you're doing anything wrong, but it felt like I was by choosing to have weight loss surgery.
I get it.
But it ended up being the best thing I ever did for myself, for my life.
Yes.
It's been, and we can talk more about the bariatric journey as a whole if you want to as well, but that's what led me to it. And
yes,
it did, in this bariatric community really fell into my lap because I had started off, I was in my dietetic internship. I didn't tell any of my fellow interns or peers that I was having surgery. I did not want anyone to know it was going to be this. I wasn't ready to help people, but I felt this need for support. I didn't know anyone else who had had surgery. I felt incredibly isolated and alone. And I ended up on Instagram. I created, my Instagram handle was what it is now. It was like this random name. I think it was like my middle name or something. And there just, I didn't want anyone in like my real life to find me, but I also really wanted support. So I ended up just connecting with other bariatric patients online through the bariatric community on Instagram. And I started just like getting to see other people's journeys and getting inspired. And I started documenting my own journey, but I didn't tell anyone I was in school to be a dietitian. Once because I just wanted the support. I didn't want anyone coming to me as an expert because I didn't see myself as an expert.
Right.
Honestly.
You had that imposter syndrome going on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Very
common.
much so. So once I actually passed my exam that summer and was officially a dietitian, I did share with people, and I was really scared. I was like, are people going to think I'm a sucky dietitian because I needed surgery? Are people going to think like, I had all these really big imposter syndrome pieces. Yes. So many people were like, oh my God, you're a dietitian. Can you help me? Wow. Like, you know what I'm going through. I would love it if you could help me. And people started naturally asking me for help. And that's when I started building, my nutrition practice and my programs and things. And it's just, it's been a whirlwind ever since then, but I really found my calling because going through the process firsthand, even though like logically I knew like the nutrition, I knew how to follow the diet, like actually changing my habits and actually going through the mindset shifts and like the emotional hurdles that you go throughout surgery was just so immense. And I wanted to help other people. So while my passion had started with working with people with PCOS, I still very much get to do that now, but it's in a different sense because I do work with the bariatric population. And it's been incredible because I have found my own best friends and the best community ever within the bariatric community because it is such a unique journey that truly can be very isolating if you don't have that sense of community around you.
It's so true. It's so true. And when you were telling your story leading up to everything, I honestly I'm almost in tears because it's so, I'm also in my luteal phase. So I'm giving myself grace there, but it's so relatable to feel so much guilt and shame, especially, when we're at the doctors for something related to weight. And it's just this like taboo topic. And I think it's so refreshing to see somebody like you approaching it the way that you do as, informative, inspiring, fun even. And, I use that word sparingly when talking about things like exercise and diet. But it really, there is a way to approach it in a way that, that feels like that. So kudos to you, everybody who is, even thinking about that. I always refer out to you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. Yes. And I think it is so interesting how we fall into these, what is now, something we consider to be our calling, but begrudgingly at first,
right.
Same thing with PCOS. I said, I'm not going to touch PCOS with a 60-foot pole. It is too complicated and never doing that. And then, like you, the more I thought about it, the more I started realizing, you know what? I am the perfect person because I understand what the struggle feels like. And that is absolutely priceless. There's a lot of dietitians working in PCOS who, it's not a bad thing, but they don't have it and they don't know what it is truly like to live in the body of somebody who struggles daily. So
it's
priceless.
It gives you such a different perspective and a different layer of empathy. And not to say that people who don't struggle with their weight or PCOS or have had surgery can't be empathetic. Of course they can. There's fantastic dietitians and practitioners, but and with my own community that I work with, it's one thing to get binder filled of all the rules of the diet you need to follow on paper. It's another to go home with it and implement it in a way that works for you. And that's a totally different ball game.
Yes, it is. Oh my gosh. Yes. 100%. I've learned that as a provider. Tell us a little bit about just weight loss surgery. There's different types. If you could just very briefly touch on some of the main ones. I don't know exactly how many there are, but for somebody who's entering into this space, maybe thinking about it in the kind of question, curiosity phase.
Sure. So I might miss a few as well, but there's kind of two different categories of weight loss surgery types. So weight loss surgery is considered a metabolic procedure because when you are altering your anatomy for bariatric surgeries, you typically are changing your metabolic makeup because of the hormonal shifts. However, there are metabolic versus non-metabolic surgeries. So, for example, the lap band, the adjustable gastric band, and the gastric balloon are our non-metabolic types because you're not actually altering your anatomy. They are devices.
Physically,
Yes. So there's a lot of mixed feelings about those surgeries. There are higher complication rates, to my understanding, for things like the lap band, and with it slipping, with it not resulting in the weight loss that you're looking for.
So are those less common, you would say?
At this point, but they used to be very common. The reason I bring it up is a lot of people want those surgeries because they're less permanent. So it's almost like a tiptoe into it. A lot of people are like, well, I just maybe want to do the lap band. So the reason I bring it up is just knowing out the gate that they can have complications and are likely going to be less effective than weight loss. And the gastric balloon is a removable device that only stays in, I believe, 6 months. So it's basically they put a balloon in your stomach, they inflate it so that it has portion control, but then they take it out. I believe so. Don't quote me on that. It's one of the newer procedures. Those are the ones that are not going to alter your anatomy per se. But then we move into the metabolic procedures where it does alter your anatomy. So we have the vertical sleeve gastrectomy. That is the one that I have. That's known as the sleeve or VSG. So with that, you are essentially removing 85% of your stomach.
Okay. Wow. That's a big amount.
It is a big amount. So if you picture like your stomach, it kind of looks like a jelly bean. It's taking out the like bulbous, like fundus portion of it. So if you can just picture it, it almost looks like a banana. Your new stomach almost looks like a banana or like a very long esophagus. It's just kind of straight and narrow. You remove the 85% of it and they stitch it up. Mostly it's done laparoscopically. And that one is definitely, it's a metabolic procedure as well. It changes your hunger hormones and that hormonal makeup in there, which is why it can be so effective. The one thing with VSG, as opposed to some of the other ones I'm going to mention, is you are not rerouting anything. So you're not rerouting intestines, you're not reconnecting anything. So there's no malabsorptive component to it. So you're not absorbing your vitamins as you would with something, say, like a gastric bypass. So the Roux-en-Y gastric bypass is another very common one.
You can see how much I forget after going to school for this. It's been so long. I'm like, oh my gosh, I need a refresher.
And to be fair,
I remember learning about it.
It's like half a textbook page of a couple diagrams. So it's not like they dive super deep. So gastric bypass, and this is where it gets real nitty gritty. And unless I'm looking at the diagrams myself, it's hard to explain exactly what they're switching and changing. But for the ones that are more malabsorptive, you have gastric bypass, where they are basically creating a pouch and they are reconnecting where your stomach empties in your intestines. There is also mini gastric bypass, which is done similarly yet different. There is the duodenal switch, and there's also the SADI, which is the modified duodenal switch. So a lot of the times the duodenal switches are also done in staged procedures. So someone who starts at a very high starting weight, let's say someone is closer to 500 pounds, perhaps, they might start off having the vertical sleeve gastrectomy, where they are, because it's still going to be effective to get weight loss off. It's less of a risk because you're under the table for less time, like less time under anesthesia. Then maybe after that first year, they convert you to the duodenal switch, because in order to have the duodenal switch and or the SADI, you start off with a stomach very similarly to the vertical sleeve gastrectomy. So it's the same, like stomach removal, but then they reroute where your intestines are, essentially. So that's like a general synopsis. Those are the most common ones. There are others, but those are the ones that we do see most often.
Okay. Thank you for that breakdown. That's really helpful.
You're welcome.
Especially, I know, I feel like I'm starting at square one since it's been so long since I've dug into that.
Well, bariatrics really is a specialty. We don't learn tons about it in school. And unless you choose to have a rotation in your dietetic internship or work at a center, these are things that you just don't really learn in school. Touche.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah. I'm thinking back to schooling so long ago.
I know.
Thank God. What are some misconceptions? Like, what would you say are like, I don't know. I love to do myth busting on my podcast, but obviously. like three
So
big
many
myths that you hear the most often about weight loss surgery.
Myth number one is that it is taking the easy way out and or cheating. That if you have surgery, you don't actually want to try hard. You don't actually want to put the work in. You're just cheating. That is the biggest myth. And I could talk about that for 5 hours if you wanted me to.
I can hear your voice tone changing. Like that's how I get about these PCOS myths. It's like, oh, yes.
The other biggest myth is that it is extremely dangerous, and there are a lot of people who are strongly against it, particularly, unfortunately, in some of the intuitive eating and body positivity spaces. There's a lot of people who are adamantly against bariatric surgery. They will refer to it as a stomach amputation. They will refer to it as being barbaric, which is just really insulting and not true. And it's actually, so if we're looking, so I will just say every surgery does come with its risk factor, but in order to qualify for surgery and proceed with it, the benefits have to far outweigh the risks. Having weight loss surgery, if we're looking at statistics of surgical complication, risk of death, all of those things, it is far riskier to have your appendix removed or a hip replacement. Those are riskier procedures than weight loss surgery.
Gosh.
So my point is, if your appendix bursts, you're going to get it taken out, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So like,
leave it hanging.
So your vertical sleeve gastrectomy procedure is less of a risk than that. So I would just like to put that into perspective.
I love that. Thank you.
It sounds like it is this or who has had a loved one have a complication. I'm not minimizing the fact that complications do happen.
Sure.
It's just not nearly as common as people like to think.
Yes.
So people will use a lot of scare tactics. Like,
okay. Yeah.
People use scare tactics of, you're going to do this dangerous barbaric thing just so you can be skinny. And it's like, that's not it at all. And this is not, it's also, I guess this will maybe add like a fourth myth, but it's also not a cosmetic procedure. It is a medical procedure, and it has nothing to do with aesthetics or cosmetics. So that's a misconception. Lastly, people will say, oh, everyone who has surgery gains all their weight back. Everyone.
I have heard something along those lines.
Yep. Everyone gains their weight back. No one actually fails because no one actually tries, and therefore they just gain their weight back. People, anytime, and I'm pretty sure any person you talk to who has had surgery will tell you this. If whatever, I don't know why. So my mom actually had surgery this last year too, and she's like, "How come every time I tell someone about my surgery, they tell me about their brothers, cousins, uncles, girlfriends, ex-boyfriend who had surgery and gained their weight back?" And it's true. Someone always feels the need to tell you some horror story about how someone they know gained all their weight back. But the thing is, that's probably not true either. Right. Because when you have surgery, it's unlikely you stay at your lowest. Most people do gain a bit of weight back, and I can talk more about why that is if you want.
Sure.
But that doesn't mean they gained all their weight back.
All
and
of it.
And there's a high likelihood that they are far healthier now, even with a little bit of regain, than they were 120, 200 pounds ago. So it's so true. It just perpetuates the stigma and the misconceptions. And so many bariatric patients are faced with so much shame and hate from others. Honestly, all you have to do is go on Instagram and find one of our fellow bariatric influencer pages with a transformation picture and see the horrendous things that are said in the comments.
Oh my gosh. That breaks my heart. Again, my luteal phase vibes. I'm like, I'm gonna cry. That's just so wrong.
They'll say, oh, you're actually proud of that. Why would you be proud? You cheated. Or, oh, I thought you did this naturally. You just had surgery. So why are you like, people just say awful things and they dismiss everything you've been through. And again, the misconception that it's easy. Weight loss surgery is effective. It's actually the most effective treatment we currently have for treating severe obesity. It is effective, but that doesn't make it easy. And just because you're getting weight loss results doesn't mean it comes without effort or it comes without changing habits. That is essential no matter which route you go for tackling weight loss. Habits you're never going to take that off the table. Yes. But then it also kind of begs the question too, though, why are people so mad about it not being so hard for us? Why do they want to see us struggling? Why do they want to see
really good reflective
So,
question?
because and that kind of goes back to some of the weight stigma and weight bias that our society has. Like, why does it bother you?
Right.
Yeah, let's play devil's advocate. Let's just pretend it wasn't hard. It was, but let's just pretend it wasn't. Why does that bother you that I was able to have a fighting chance at my life? Why is it insulting to you that I was given this opportunity? So these are the things that bariatric patients, unfortunately, are faced with every single day.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the times it comes from their own family, their own friends, who don't even realize that they are perpetuating the shame too. A lot of the times people will hear, you don't need surgery, you're beautiful the way you are. It's like, okay, but
sure.
I want to lose weight and have a fulfilling life and be able to do things I can't right now.
Right.
Or
yeah.
I want to put, type 2 diabetes into remission, whatever it might be. You don't have to justify it to anyone.
Right.
But people will say, you don't need that, or you're not big enough yet for that. Or people, my favorite, have you ever thought about going to the gym and exercising?
My God.
Wow.
It's like they think that like, yeah, you just wake up and are like, you know what, I'd like to lose some weight.
It also goes back to, again, the stigma that people with obesity face, because it's insulting to my intelligence that you think I haven't thought about diet and exercise. Like, it is truly to the 9-year-old little girl who is over 200 pounds, who's been doing this her whole life. It is insulting for you to ask me if I've thought about Weight Watchers.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. It's like just relax with people dealing with infertility. Have you thought about adopting? Right. I can liken, so many things here, but I can't imagine how that feels to be on the receiving end.
And, for a lot of us, add PCOS on top of that. So many of us do choose surgery because we have been told, and you and I can have a productive conversation around this too, if you'd like, but, to increase our odds of conceiving by getting some of this weight off and improving our health. And so many women embark on this bariatric journey so that they can do just that. And then to be faced with even more shame from both angles is really, really shitty.
Totally shit-tastic. And that's another reason why I freaking love your work, because you are helping to illuminate the realities of this. And really, I think the glass half full in me, type of person wants to say, these people don't always, just like with the infertility probing, I've been down that road. They're not always meaning, some people are, of course, but, to come off that way when they ask that, they just don't understand, and I think that it's educating them on these things that can really shape the future of how this procedure is viewed, how it's received. And, I think it is important to keep asking those questions. Why are people, wanting us to struggle? I think that's such a powerful question.
We all have our own thoughts and feelings on this, but the fact is obesity is a disease, and it's one of the only diseases that we view as a moral failing than the disease that it actually is.
Yes.
And it's viewed as it's your fault that you don't care enough. It's your fault that you're lazy. It's your fault that you don't work hard enough. And it's very harmful, because I don't know about you, but I don't know of many other disease states where we would shame someone for seeking help.
Addiction. I think addiction is the other one that comes to mind. Alcohol and drug addiction, I think similar. Yeah.
And interestingly enough, bariatric patients are at very high risk for transfer addiction. There is debate over whether food addiction is a true addiction or not.
Oh, yes.
But that's a whole nuanced conversation within our own community too.
Totally. I can see that. There's just so much to unpack here. Yeah. I think about this easy way out myth, and I think about it just, in terms of like something, I'm just trying to relate it, obviously I have not had weight loss surgery, but I have struggled, and I will always struggle, with my weight. I hate when I get comments on Instagram, well, you're thin, you don't get it. Okay, let's unpack that. So long ago, not too long ago, and it's a journey. It's not, you reach a destination and then you're good to go. It's every day is thinking consciously, what the maintenance piece.
And that's the other thing with obesity being a disease is once you overcome it or don't have it anymore, in order to keep it that way, it's something you're going to live with your whole life. And believe it or not, I've gotten similar comments too of like, well, you just don't understand. I'm like, I don't understand.
I don't understand. Girl, I know, right?
Excuse me?
I know. Yes, I know. And I give them grace, I think, oh, okay, well, clearly you haven't been here long enough. but yeah, you know, thinking about even just similarities to other things like when I chose to formula feed my son, so many questions. Well, why? You know, even when I got to the delivery room and I was literally getting like hooked up to my saline, and the nurse was like, "Are you planning on breastfeeding?" And I said no, and she said, "I kid you not." She said, "Why? It's the healthiest option." And I'm like, "Oh my God, it is 2023. Are we not past that?" And she went into a spiel. I was so hormonal, obviously, like ready to go into labor.
Well,
I was just about to like hit her. If I had a frying pan, it would have just anyway. I was shocked, and it's the same thing. Like I chose it for my mental health purposes because breastfeeding is a full-time freaking job, and it's like, why do you want me to struggle? I know, well, it's the same thing. Like,
what's healthiest for you,
yes,
for your baby, for any person is what is going to keep you healthiest mentally, physically, and emotionally. And it's wild because my little sister is having her first baby this month. I get to be an aunt, and I'm super excited. But she told me recently, and she works, she's a hairdresser, she works with the public all the time. And she goes, you know, it's really wild to me because I never thought people said anything but congratulations to pregnant women. She's like, the comments I've been faced, she's like, the amount of like, and even like comments on like her weight, like she told one of her clients, like, "Oh yeah, she was, I'm pregnant in case you couldn't tell," and was like kind of like showing her bum. She goes, "Yeah, your face does look puffy." Who says that? Like the and she's like the amount of and she said the amount of pressure she's gotten from strangers telling her you should really breastfeed. She's like, people ask me if I'm going to breastfeed. And then they set it up because if I say no, it's going to be a horrified response of why. And why is it anybody's business? You know? And again, it also goes back to what is healthy for one person is not always healthy for another. And this is where I think most dietitians will advocate for this, but patient-centered care is the most important thing. Totally. You know, your nurse never should have shamed you for that or made you weigh your options. Like, it's wild.
Yes, I know. I think, you know, in life, anything we do, you know, we're damned if we do, we're damned if we don't. So do whatever is going to work for you. Yep. Bottom line, like in all facets of life.
There's no way around it. PCOS is complex and multifaceted. What we know about it, including how best to treat it, is constantly changing. That's why I've dedicated my life's work to helping women put their PCOS into remission. Inside my signature program, the PCOS Boss Academy, women lose weight permanently without restriction and master their most stubborn PCOS symptoms. If you're looking to get pregnant or want to be a mom in the future, my ultra-successful Get Pregnant with PCOS program supports moms-to-be every step of the way in conquering PCOS symptoms and bringing home the baby of their dreams. Plus, there's an additional weight loss mode to check into. These are all of the science-backed nutrition and lifestyle tweaks you need to improve your PCOS and change your life from a qualified healthcare provider and leading PCOS expert in the field. Ultimately, we are in control of our PCOS, and I would love to work with you inside one of my upcoming programs so you can step into the best version of yourself and start feeling like you again.
So if someone is thinking, you know, and I do want to just go back to this concept that we just talked about in terms of, you know, taking the easy way out, just really quickly, I just want to reiterate, nobody wakes up and says, I'm ready to lose weight, and then the next day books a consult for weight loss surgery. You have tried all the things, right? So
not only have you tried all the things, in order to qualify in the United States for your insurance cover, you have to prove you've tried all the things. You have to prove it on paper that you did this diet this year and this that year. It's like the process just to get approved for surgery is wild. So the fact that people think, you know what, let's just go do that today. It does not happen at all, ever, never.
No, I know. It's so true. It's so true. I was working with someone she actually did have her surgery, like I want to say 3 months ago. And she was, I mean, you would have thought she was a dietitian, Jamie. Like she was counting her her carbs, her calories. She was like, okay, I'm ordering this to get my carbs here. She has PCOS as well, shocker. And she was, waiting for her surgery. And I was, I had several appointments for my hair with her. And she just kind of, she was just kind of walking me through her journey. And you would have thought she was an RD because of how much she knew about nutrition and we have this misunderstanding that people, like you said, just wake up and just decide, oh, I'm going to take the easy route and not learn a thing. Opposite.
Well, also people who struggle with their weight, who have been on diets since they were 9 years old, like myself, is why it's so insulting when someone says, have you thought about dieting? It's like, I could read you the calorie on every single,
I know.
And that does borderline like disordered thoughts, but when it's been beaten into your head to portion your things and to count this and to count that, it's insulting to assume that just because someone struggles with their weight that they don't know these things. It's like, again, genius idea. Why didn't I think of that?
Wow. Thank you so much, sir. Or ma'am, whatever. So what are some tips that you give typically for somebody who is going to get the surgery done and they're like a little anxious about like post-op? Like, are there specific things that I know there are, very, there are guidelines as far as how to handle recovery. And I don't know, I just wanted to ask this question because I just think it might, ease somebody's mind who's thinking about doing this. And I know there can be anxiety about surgery.
Totally. So surgery itself, I was terrified of. I had never had a surgery in my life up until that point. Remember, you're not going to go under the knife and have surgery unless your surgeon is fully confident that the benefits outweigh any risk. They would not let you put yourself in harm's way.
Yes.
Most of these surgeries at this point are done laparoscopically, so the healing time is relatively smooth. It's, you might have a little bit of pain or tenderness where they like go in through like the stomach muscle for like that kind of thing, but usually recovery time is like 1 to 2 weeks of just like kind of laying low and taking it easy. The hard part isn't the surgery. The hard part is the lifestyle that comes after. But what I tell everyone is, you can do hard things, and that's been my motto. And the best thing that you can do if you are embarking on this journey is to get support. Find a support group or accountability system.
Or work with you. Just gonna throw that out there.
Well, if you need a place,
shameless plug.
You let me know. I know a guy.
Hell yeah.
But no, it's something that I really advocate for because accountability is huge. And learning to change the habits. The other thing I will say is, as hard as it is, your post-op diet prescribed to you by your surgeon is not a suggestion. It is not optional. So many people have surgery and come out saying, well, I'm feeling better and I'm losing weight now, so I'm going to intuitively eat. I don't really need to be that restrictive. It's not meant to be restrictive from a fad diet standpoint.
Yes.
It's a time and place. I say this all the time. All foods can fit, just not all the time. And in that first year post-op, you are healing. Your needs of getting your protein in are so important. And because your portions are so small, the majority of your intake is going to be protein.
Oh, okay.
It's not super fun. It's not, you don't get to, it's restrictive in a sense.
It is what it is. Yeah. Gotta get that in.
But over time, it's a short-lived period, because over time, as you're able to eat more, you slowly start to integrate things back in until you're back to that balanced plate approach where all foods can fit. It just takes some time. It takes some time. So I remind everyone that is temporary, and it is not because we want you to feel like you are restricted forever. It's just for your needs and to avoid protein calorie malnutrition. We need to make sure you're getting your protein in. So I always tell people it's not optional, and this is where it is hard in the beginning, but just know that is short-lived, and eventually you will be able to eat all the things again, unless there are certain things that make you maybe you don't feel good after eating it anymore. But also I tell people, we don't want to, some people do like to test the waters. They're like, I know I'm not supposed to have this yet, but I want to see if it makes me don't do it, guys. Unless you really miss something, don't add it in, because this is the only period of your post-op life where you are going to be able to emotionally distance yourself from those trigger foods and really work on the mindset of things and be able to be faced with having to learn new coping mechanisms without leaning on food. And sometimes you don't realize how much you need that until it's not there.
Oh my God, yes.
So it's an opportunity for you to get to know yourself. It's an opportunity for you to go to therapy. I want everyone to consider going to therapy to really work. So when you are stressed and all you want is the popcorn, or all you want is what we call slider foods in the bariatric community, those highly refined carbohydrates that we can just eat a lot more of, despite our surgeries.
Crackers, popcorn.
You can't heal in the same space that made you sick. And if those were the foods that we were struggling with beforehand, we need to figure out why that is before we re-enter them, because otherwise you might not be propelled to learn those new coping mechanisms if you're someone who needs to do so. And again, everyone's situation is different. Not everyone has an emotional issue with food. However, the majority of us who end up in a place where we do need surgery do have our own emotional eating components there. It just is very common. So I encourage you to utilize that time and space before things get overly complicated with adding things back in. And, it's pretty regimented. Use that time to get the support, use that time to work on your mindset, use that time to work in therapy, so that once you are hopefully working with a therapist and dietitian, I encourage everyone to do so when integrating foods back in, because carbs are not bad and we should not eliminate them long term. And it has nothing to do with the good and bad foods. It simply has to do with getting your needs met and learning these new habits. Once you do that, you should be able to add foods back in and have that balanced plate and feel really confident in your food choices. But it's a process and we have to go through those phases.
I love that. I love looking at it like that. It's an opportunity versus like, this is the worst, going to be the worst year, the most restrictive year. And let me tell you, at 34 years old, man, a year goes by so fast. All of a sudden you're going to be like eating all the things. What about, what are some common side effects of weight loss surgery? The one that I've heard about is hair loss, just because it's a surgery, it's a, weight loss. Like, is that a thing? Like, are there any others? Okay.
Are you asking some of the maybe more negative side effects?
Like if someone's like weighing pros and cons, right? Like what are some things that they could look at as potentially like, oh, okay, that's something to be aware of, and something that I might have to face.
There are certainly consequences to not following that post-op diet. You also have to take bariatric formulated vitamins lifelong. That is very important. To make sure that you're getting your needs met. Not only so, the two biggest things that I hear that people are like, I really want to do surgery, but I don't want to lose my hair and I don't want loose skin. Those are the two biggest ones.
Yes.
The two biggest ones, which I have a couple things to say about that. But my when it comes to the hair loss, it is common. And the reason it is common is because you're in a caloric deficit and your body needs to use its vitamin stores for its most essential functions. And unfortunately, hair is usually the first to go.
Hair, nails,
However, what I tell people is if you are very consistent with both your protein intake, again, we have to follow that diet for a reason. If you are consistent with your protein intake, following that post-op diet and taking your vitamins, it will grow back.
Yes.
It will. So it is a short-lived phase where, you're going to see some hair loss. Your body's kind of like freaking out because it doesn't know what to do with being in such a deficit and utilizing those vitamin stores.
Yes.
So yes, take your vitamins, get your protein in, it will grow back.
Okay.
And some of the other consequences, though, if we don't take it, is one, if we're not taking our vitamins, not hitting our protein goals, the two things that can come into play is your hair might not grow back. You could potentially end up with protein calorie malnutrition, and you could potentially end up with nutrient deficits. You could end up with
nutrient deficiencies.
Yeah, thank you. With my smart diet, find the word. Basically, you don't want to have low iron. You don't want to have low vitamin D. You don't want to have have nutrient deficiencies. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Totally makes sense.
So we want to make sure that we're consistent with those things.
The vitamins,
which is again one of the reasons getting support and being diligent with your habits in that first year is essential. So you get these things under your belt because it's a long-term commitment.
Yes. Okay.
So those are two biggest things. The other thing is people are always afraid of loose skin. And I get it. I have had 3 rounds of plastic surgery to get rid of loose skin. So I get it. And that's been its own journey.
Can happen. Yeah.
But when I think back to myself weighing the pros and cons and sitting there at my unhealthiest, my heaviest, my saddest.
Yes.
And I would tell myself these things because one of the only things in my life that made me feel beautiful was my hair. That was so when I started to lose my hair, when I tell you I was devastated, I was curled up in a ball.
Girl,
So because I used to hide behind it. I used to, that was my identity. That was the one thing my whole life people would tell me was beautiful about me was my hair. So losing that was really hard. And then the loose skin. And I can remember sitting there going, I really want to do surgery, but I don't want the loose skin. But looking back, I'm like, that was so silly. And it was more of a defense because I was scared. I was
Yes.
scared of what actually
Fear.
happened. I was scared of what would actually happen if I did it, if I actually succeeded, if I actually realized my worth and put my health first.
Totally.
And one of the things, and I'll ask people very honestly, and it's not meant to be facetious in any way, but people will come to me and say, Jamie, I really want to have surgery, but I don't want to have loose skin. And I'll say, okay, I want you to just close your eyes for a minute. And I want you to imagine your life a year from now. We're going to pretend that you are at the healthiest weight you can imagine. You are, all of your labs are normal. You are going on hikes and traveling without having to ask for a seatbelt extender, and you're able to keep up with your friends or play with your kids, but you do have loose skin. So sometimes you have to wear compression leggings and or whatever.
Yeah.
Is that the worst thing ever? And usually the answer is no. It's
Right.
usually
I
not.
love that.
It's just pinpointing something else that because we're afraid. And a lot of
Yes.
us are afraid of what will happen if we don't actually do it. And this was a really like big moment for me in therapy.
Yes.
When my therapist had asked me one day when I was in my first year out and I was pretty close to what my lowest previously had been. And she said, she's like, Jamie, who would you be if you weren't the girl who had to lose weight anymore because you did it? What if you didn't? What if that wasn't your identity anymore? And I broke into tears, like burst
Oh,
into tears because I did
yeah.
not know who I was. I had
Yes.
been trying to lose weight since I was literally 8 years old.
Wow.
I did not know who I was as a person if I did not have to lose weight. So when she said, "Who would you be if you didn't have to be the girl who has to lose weight anymore?" I was like, I literally, I don't know. I do not
Oh,
know.
wow.
So
Yeah.
part of this journey for me has also been discovering who the heck I am outside
Right.
being the girl who has to prove herself. And again, this is
Powerful.
getting kind of deep, but it's really easy to cover all that ick up by saying, I don't want loose skin.
Yes.
There's a lot underneath
Right.
there. Because
Totally.
usually we're afraid. And again, I can't speak for everyone. Everyone's situation is different. And is loose
Right.
skin fun? No, it's
Right.
not
Is hair
fun to
loss
have loose skin.
fun? No.
No,
Yes.
but what's the alternative? And I think where
Yep.
in the heck would I be? Where would I be if I didn't make that plunge? It was actually, I'm putting together, and I hope this doesn't
Yes.
sound like a shameless plug. It's not meant to, but I do have a book
No.
coming out and I'm
Yay.
creating
I know. I'm so excited.
I'm creating
Yeah.
some supplemental resources to go along with the book.
Yes.
And today I dug up a video. I have very few videos of me early on, but I had a video that I filmed of
Nice.
myself the first time documenting my journey
Oh,
when
cool.
I got my approval letter for surgery and my surgery date. And I basically was
Nice.
talking about how scared I was. And I was like, we'll see what happens. And then I kind of filmed the like, well, this is
Oh,
what happened.
that's so
And
cool.
it's been very surreal. It's like, what if I didn't take that plunge? What if I
Right.
didn't do this? What if what if I was too scared? Or
Yeah.
what if I never was able to admit that I deserved more?
Yeah.
Because people can pinpoint it on, well, you just want to be skinny or you just don't want to try hard, like all the things. But that's
All the
not
things.
true. What we want is to be healthy and to not be judged
Yeah.
and to not be shamed and to not feel trapped in our body. It's
Yeah. It's
been so
freeing.
wild to not feel trapped in my body and to
Right.
be able to fit into the world. Like I said, being able to travel and not need a seatbelt extender, to be able to walk on a plane and not have to like shimmy between the aisles because I can't fit. Like
Right.
little things that people don't think of is life
Right.
changing.
If you haven't lived that. Right.
I am a Disney adult through and through. I love the fact that I can go. The fact that I love
Yes.
that's
Nice.
my jam.
You take
The
my
fact that
kids. I'm like, I don't want to go.
any day I will take them any day. Okay, for the record, kids usually love me because I've got pink hair and my Elsa tattoo.
Yes.
Like
Wait, you haven't stop. You have an Elsa. Stop it. Okay. My daughter is literally obsessed. I have to tell her about that after this episode. She's going to be like,
no,
I want to see.
I am like a 4-year-old's like idol.
I love
Anyways,
it. Yes.
my point is
Yes.
I get to go and travel and I
Yeah.
can go to Disney World and I can walk
Right.
around all day and not have to stop and sit. I can sit on the rides and my day is not consumed with thoughts of food of what I will and won't eat anymore. And it's because I'm set in my routine and my habits and it's been truly life-changing. So yeah, it's about the weight, but it's also not about the weight. It's about being able to live freely. And I think that's the thing people don't see, which is why it's, again, so insulting when people make it sound like we don't deserve that opportunity in life because we cheated.
Oh, yes. Gosh, that's just it's powerful, really. And you'll take, what's that saying? You'll miss 100% of the shots you don't take, Jamie. So,
Yes, correct.
You got to go for it. And I think if anyone listening to this now is like on the fence or considering it, I think this is the stepping stone that is needed to consider this as a life-changing opportunity and something that can be so incredibly freeing. God, we've covered so much good stuff today. I really want to wrap up with, I want you to tell listeners and viewers how you work with clients, how they can find you, what resources you have. And anything that you're like just super jazzed on right now in the moment, anything you can think of, because I want others to know that you exist and what you have to offer.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to share. So the main program that I offer at this point in time and the way I work with clients is through my membership program. It's called the Tribe, and it's an acronym that stands for the Real Insights of Bariatric Eating.
This program
is, this program is basically your one-stop shop for all the support and resources you could ever want on your journey. And I say that truly because it's everything I wish I had.
I was going to say, did you create what you would have wanted? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yes,
perfect. So basically you log in and there are dozens and dozens of modules, which is me teaching and giving you information on all things nutrition related, bariatric related. Cool. We have hundreds of recipes. We have workout videos created by NASM certified bariatric trainers. Awesome. We have our community section, and then I basically have every teaching you could probably ever want in there as far as information. But I think the best feature of the Tribe is that we have grown to the point where many people have said, like, we need the support. So the more, my motto is kind of ask and you shall receive. So at this point in time, in addition to all of those self-paced modules, we have a live calendar every month. So every month we have a new theme, a new topic, or a new challenge of some kind. And we have anywhere from 40 to 45 live support groups every single month. And they are
amazing.
They are led. I do some of the live Q&As and some of the workshops and guest expert calls. And then I have a team of 18 different tribe leaders. They are incredible humans.
Oh my gosh. So they're people in the group.
Yep. So they are our leaders, and all of them, except for two, have had weight loss surgery and are professionals in some aspects. So the two who have not are dietitians who have not had surgery. Okay, cool. But the other 16, we have a psychologist, therapist, social worker, a doctor of physical therapy.
Impressive.
We have so many people who have had surgery and do have these unique credentials. We have a registered nurse, we have a physician, and they have had surgery too. And they lead very niche topics and support groups. So we have pre-op, regain support groups, newly post-op support groups. We have support groups for those who are also on GLP-1 medications with our physician. We have support groups. One of our leaders, she is a DEI expert and author, and she is neurodivergent, and she leads our habit planning group for people who are neurodivergent after surgery. So if you are on the autism spectrum or have ADHD,
that is niche. That is so cool.
And as we have grown, we've been able to do incredibly niche topics. We have our mama support group for bariatric moms with little kids at home. So there is we have our 50 plus and fabulous support group for our who are in their 50s and older. So we literally have something in there for everyone, and there's literally something every single day. So
can I ask a question too? There I just am curious about this. Do you find that more women than men get weight loss surgery? Or so
I talk about this.
Was curious.
Yeah, I believe, and don't quote me on the statistic off the top of my head, I think less than 20% of all bariatric surgeries are men. Okay. So my tribe membership community is primarily women, those who identify as women, and non-gender conforming people. And that is honestly mostly because, well, for starters, I do want to create a really safe space for women and those who identify as women to come and talk about some of these things that they struggle with. Sure. But also, if we just look at statistics, 98% of my audience identifies as female. So it's really hard. It's been really challenging for us to create. There are men in the community for sure, and some incredibly inspiring men. But it's really a challenge because they deserve and need support as well. But it's hard to. We've offered it, and it's like, hello, where are you?
Yeah. Men, are there any men or are there any?
So, and I'm not discrediting anyone who's listening to this who is a man or identifies as a man. It's just not as common. But that is my membership. That's my membership community. That is the main service I offer. I do also have, I just came out with my Tackling Snacking Bariatric course. That one is only $27, and it's a 10-module self-paced course about overcoming snacking after surgery. So that's something else I'm just excited about right now.
Cool. Love that. So helpful.
And then my book is coming out. It is available to pre-order as of September 1st, and it will officially be out September 16th.
Okay.
It is called The Easy Way Out: Why Bariatrics Isn't Cheating Obesity, It's Treating It. And it's all about destigmatizing obesity and talking about all of the things that go into a bariatric journey. And my hope with this book is to get it into hands of people who have had surgery, physicians, to start to bridge the gap between patient and practitioner, and to start to just really improve bariatric care and obesity care and treatment. I talk a lot about my PCOS journey in there, because I do tell it a bit memoir style, where I talk about my own journey, but it's really my hope that all bariatric patients feel seen and heard while reading this.
Right.
And I do hope this gets into the hands of people who might not realize that surgery is even an option for them, to at least allow them to know that that opportunity exists.
Totally.
It's obviously not the right choice for everyone, but for those who could benefit from it, I want them to at least know about it and the opportunities there. So that comes out, and
cool.
If you're looking where to find me, you can follow me at The Sleeve Dietitian at Instagram, or www.thesleevedietitian.com. If you get on my mailing list, you won't miss any of my updates for the book or other things that come out. And I do also have a handful of free resources there too. So if you go to my website and you go to the free resources tab, I have a whole bunch of free guides and things for people to get.
Super helpful. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Jamie.
Thank you for having me.
So grateful for your time and your wisdom. You are literally changing the world. No pressure. But I cannot wait for you. I know.
So are you. You're killing it over
there. And I just can't wait to see, your book when it comes out, and read it and recommend it, and keep recommending everyone, to you. You are just so amazing. So thank you for everything.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. It's been so fun to finally come and chat with you. And
I know.